Hi, today we are talking about the Global Emergency Initiative. This is a EON Reality initiative focused to combat pandemic-related remote learning and training shortages using augmented and virtual reality. I'm sure you're all familiar with virtual reality and augmented reality. That, in any case, just to be sure. So virtual reality is when you are fully immersed and encapsulated in a synthetic environment. Augmented reality is when you use your phone or glasses to supplement reality, to add and superimpose information. And EON is working in both sectors, obviously using mobile phones all the way to HMD, head-mounted display, and AR glasses. And we are working with governments, academia, and enterprise. And we are focusing on knowledge transfer. We don't do games or entertainment. Now, as all of us that are in these very difficult times experiencing isolation, and especially when it comes to schools and governments, we saw the need to develop an initiative that assists these groups, academia, governments, and industry, and we focus especially to combat the COVID-19 effects on knowledge transfer. So to do so, we have released what we call the remote augmented and virtual reality packages, and I'll describe them shortly. And the idea is not only to have, let's say, technology, but also to come in with experts, academic experts. For example, Dr. Peter Luker, our Chief Learning Officer, that has more than 30 years experience in as head of learning for a number of universities. The latest one was NTU, that is ranked number 1 in Asia and 11 in the world, Nanyang Technology University in Singapore. And also Jamie Justice. Jamie has an experience in the area of technical vocational training from Kentucky system, and both of them have been actively involved in this initiative. Now, on top of that, we have also developed a 9-step implementation plan. So how can any school or a company or government do this? And during my presentation, I will explain why we do this, what it entails, and how you can start with this anytime. Now, let's look at the statistics. So the statistics we see here, this comes from UNESCO. Almost 1.6 billion students, children, are affected by the pandemic. So this is something that affects most of us. And what teachers and trainers have been forced to do is to convert their courses online. But here's the problem. There's ample statistics that shows that this doesn't work very efficiently. So already after 6 minutes, students phase out. On top of that, some courses, like for example nursing or technical vocation mechanical engineering, cannot be performed online. You can do hands-on engaging training and learning online without the use of virtual and augmented reality. So that's where this comes in. So as an effect, unfortunately, there's been very, very detrimental results, basically demolishing the productivity of classrooms. And I guess the bottom line is that this is, you have to apply concept in practice. As quoted, learning is not a spectator sport. That's probably one good quote. So, what can we do about it? What we've seen is by implementing remote augmented virtual reality, which I will describe in detail, as well as self-directed learning. So assigning students to become experts and create lessons about topics of their choosing within a certain, I would say, topic, or even if you instruct them to do specific lessons. And then on top of that, having class peer review. So you both use the virtual reality for the creation part as well as for the peer review part. So there's a number of by-effects that are beneficial. So we engage a lot with teachers, and they are literally stressed out because they have to convert all the normal materials to online. They have to teach an environment that many of them have never been able to do online. They are not comfortable. There's a lot of technology issues. So to come to them and say, by the way, now you have to also do virtual reality, augmented reality, that doesn't work. So by implementing self-directed learning, we are taking the pressure of educators to create content. And on top of that, a peer review also helps the assessment. So let's go into more details. Let's go specifically on what the programs are, give you an overview of that, and also how we prioritize implementation. So on one hand, you have organization-specific partnership based on emergency funding. Many university, academic institutions, and colleges are getting funding for enabling online learning, and they are looking, especially when it comes to some topics I mentioned earlier, like nursing, for example, or things that are hands-on, are requiring by law to have practical lab training, and that simply is not allowed due to pandemic. So they've negotiated ability to do this using VR and AR in a virtual way. So that's organization specific partnership. On the left hand side, we have strategic national partnership. This is governments that are taking a region or nationwide approach. So what we've done with them, we are doing private-public partnerships where we co-invest oftentimes the majority of the license fee required to implement this. And then we work with them with tens of thousands of students. So that's the kind of approach. Practically speaking, we have two programs. One we call the remote AVR program. And both programs, by the way, rest on the AVR platform. And then the self-directed learning program. I will describe both of those. Oftentimes when we engage with a partner or customer, we have an approach, and we have had to revise that approach. So most of them, for the next 3 months, or at least as long as the coronavirus issues persist, we are focusing to address these issues by working with the self-directed learning and the remote aspects of the augmented virtual reality platform. We believe that once the coronavirus dissipates, still there will be a big gap, lag, and we will focus a lot of our energy with the programs to reactivate industry participation, upskilling and job creation, education, etc. And once the situation is restored, and I must underline that I personally don't believe that we will be back to where we were before. Any responsible president of a university or CEO will, I guess it's okay to be caught once off guard, but not to be caught off guard one more time. So every president I talk with has now a long-lasting plan to implement remote as a part of their strategy. And oftentimes using a virtual and augmented reality for the more immersive experiential aspects. Okay, so let's go from theory to practice. Let me show you a concrete use case that is currently ongoing.
Thank you very much for your time.
So we are talking about University for Business and Technology. They have engaged with us for using 2,000 students for the remote AVR aspects. And so it's a pretty large scale adopted. It's a university that has more than 5,000 students. It's in Europe, in Kosovo, old country, but it's a private university. And what's exciting about this that each student gets 10 lessons to develop. So we are producing now more than 20,000 lessons in the next 30 days. This is some footage, by the way, before the pandemic. So that's pretty impressive, because before the pandemic, their goal is to develop this during a period of a year and have predominantly teachers creating these aspects. But that's changed. So let's talk a little bit about
for
what
your time,
type of
and,
lessons we have in mind. You'll see here that mechatronics, architecture, construction, energy, nursing. So we don't have selected 14 bachelor programs and about, I think, I don't know how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 master programs. And I'll give you an example. I'll select nursing as one example. Let me just switch to English. And within nursing you have, let's look at the curriculum structure. Yes, you see here that there are various courses. For example, microbiology, virology and bacteriology. And these are courses then and individual lessons that are created using VR and AR. Very applicable. So very exciting aspects. So this is on the strategic level. Expanding on a strategic level, we go all the way to national rollouts. And this is when we work together with Ministry of Education, of Health, or governments, national governments or regional governments. Two examples. One is Singapore. We have a long-standing relation with the Singapore government, and they've been very proactive in this area. We also have the Moroccan government. This is more recent partnership where we set up an IDC not long ago, but where we are actually now implementing, in the process of implementing, I should say, kind of nationwide self-directed learning activities, not only with the top universities, but also with the Ministry of Education. So this has quickly become a global movement. So we've been, not long ago, before the pandemic, we have engaged in a 114 countries roadshow, focusing on the traditional augmented virtual reality market. And what we're doing now is a number of these locations and centers, that physical centers that we've signed up, we are quickly converting to remote AVR and self-directed learning, including India, Spain, Switzerland, I mentioned Morocco earlier, Kyoto, Japan, obviously, Malaysia, China is very proactive in this area, but also places like Canada. We're looking now I've been visiting with many Australian universities, Italy, that has been very hard hit, and of course here at home in the United States. So let's go a little bit deeper and see how we actually do it. So the problem is, everybody's familiar with the problem. We used to be able to gather in big groups. We can't do that any longer for now. Schools are closed. Here in the US, you cannot be in big groups at all. In California, we have closed everything. And going online, although it's a solution, it's not a very effective solution. 6 minutes into watching an online video, students are likely to tune out. This is evidence, scientific evidence. But more important is that they are very bored, and I would say 70% are not even interested. There's statistics and articles around this. If you're interested, I'm happy to share them with you. So the solution is to start applying remote augmented virtual reality for knowledge transfer. This is a solution that works both with industry as well as with academia and governments. And how does that work practically? Just have a cup of coffee here. Yeah, so it works like this. Of course, we traditionally use VR and AR for learn, train, and perform, and most of you are familiar with this approach. So the idea, just to give you a quick insight before we go to remote, we have this platform, and this platform works on a phone, on a tablet, on a headset. It's very agnostic. And with this platform, you can then either tap into existing lessons. There's thousands of lessons. Or you can create your own lessons, and you can display those in virtual reality, as you see there. You can use your phone with a little device that you attach to your phone and be experiencing virtual reality. That's very inexpensive. Or it's augmented reality or mobile. So you can have all these modalities. And so once this is the mobile environment, you can see there, in this case, you explore an engine. That's the augmented reality when things are superimposed. And these are some of the libraries. Now, in addition to this, when you want to create your own lesson, we have more than 1 million assets that you can bring in. And once you brought in these assets, it's very easy. It's easier than PowerPoint. And you can literally learn in minutes how to create the lessons using our first-time user guide. So that's learning. Now, once you learned, you can go to the next lesson, which is train. And you can train using head-mounted display, or you can train using your desktop. And that's when you apply the knowledge that you learned about. So you actually literally have virtual devices in your hand, and you can learn about step-by-step procedure. You can do this remotely. So I am at my home, and the teacher is probably located somewhere else, but we are in the same medical lab. And then every step I take, every move I make, the system is watching me. So I record my assessment. You can see how much I complete and what I'm good at. So that's the training that can be done remotely. But finally, there's also the ability to perform that can also be done remotely. So let's say if I have to visit or inspect something, and my colleague is at home, I can actually communicate with him remotely, and I can get that instant knowledge that I maybe learned and trained about in my physical context. So that's traditional augmented virtual reality platform, but then of course we emphasize some specific aspects where you can be large groups of people. So let's say students, and these students can meet up in a virtual reality room, or in this case it's a mobile environment only. But you can also meet in augmented reality and interact and learn without any risk for physical exposures. Think about it like a Zoom or Hangout, but where you actually interact in 3 dimensions. You can do a standard operation procedure. You can do things as if you are in a lab environment. On top of that, we can also work with what we refer to as digital twins. So let's say I'm in an environment, I place a model of this car, and then I can superimpose information in augmented reality and interact. So I can learn about standard operation procedures. So it has multi-user remote training, multi-user remote learning, labs, etc. So by doing this, we are overcoming the attention span challenge that you typically have with traditional online. You are, as I mentioned, can gather large groups of students, interact virtually without any risk of physical exposure. And if you don't have a fancy headset, you can do it with your phone or with your desktop environment. We can also replicate the classroom experience in a very cost-effective way. With EON, by the way, you can go to our website right now and download this AVR platform at no cost, and can enjoy the lessons there, as well as have the ability to create 5 lessons at no cost. So that's part of our freemium package. And of course, things like labs. I was mentioning, if you want to learn about MRI devices or CNC machines or do product training, you can do that virtually, and we have a large library of these different type of objects. So more precisely, we just passed a week ago 1 million 3D assets. It's by far, to our knowledge, the largest library access for VR and AR. So let me share with you some concrete use cases. I'll start with education. So enhanced learning scenario. So a teacher is at his home, and then the student is also home, but they interact with the same planetary system where the teacher can manipulate, talk about it. So the student both hears and sees and can explore himself the topic. The other thing is this collaborative online. So you can see here the teacher on the left side, he's one physical location, the students are in other locations, but they both interact with this piece of machinery. And in this environment you can have timed quizzes, you have built-in animations in the lesson, you have either record your live voice, you have standard operation procedure that you can conduct. And very important connected with this is the assessment of student performance. So you can have peer review assessment, the system assesses you also, as well as teacher can do that. If I move over to the industry side, I'll use Dentsu as an example. They have 200 locations, one of our customers, 170,000 technicians, and now they are looking at how they can use this technology remotely. So you can see the person there with this tablet. So the tablet can be at home, and he can learn about the step-by-step procedures on different devices without necessarily having access to the physical device. However, the biggest use case that we've seen so far is the self-directed learning with augmented virtual reality. So this is a program that we've launched, and the whole idea here is to learn by doing. So why is there a need for this self-directed learning? I think we talked about it due to the pandemic, but in also normal cases, students learn better because they are active and they participate in the learning. So there's a lot of guidelines to learning. There's a mountain of research. For example, MIT has published papers around this, University of New South Wales, and that how effective this way of learning works. Okay, so what are the concrete elements of this? You allow students to become experts. They explore, they question, they react. They are not passive. They are able to collaborate and cooperate when creating this content, remotely obviously. And they built what we call 21st century critical skills by having this active learning. Now, to be very specific, we have developed a 9-step implementation plan for how to do this. And for example, I was mentioning earlier UBT, the university in Kosovo. They are implementing this 9-step implementation plan as well as during the national rollouts. So what do we do there? We identify first the lecturers in the institutions that are part of the program. They undergo level 1 training remotely with us, so they become experts in the platform. They in turn identify students, typically a good implementation academic institutions, around 3,000 students. We can do much more than that, obviously. And then we host a number of workshops where we practically teach the students how to use the platform and how to create lessons. So there's a number of things. We train them for the mobile devices, how to do this on a phone, an iPhone, Android device. For example, you can see here the result of a lesson in augmented reality. But we also train them on traditional desktops. We take them through what I call the first-time user experience. And in about 30-40 minutes, they are learning very well how to do this. We also have something called quick guides. We have quick guides for the mobile phone that are written documentation on top of the videos that you can follow step by step how this works. Let's have a quick look here. This is for the mobile device. And likewise, we have quick books for the desktop environment. And doing this together, this is something that universities can do, an academic institution or companies can do very fast. Now, step 4, once they learn how to use it, is for teachers to outline the learning outcomes together with our support. So we have generic guidelines, but we also have criteria for qualitative guidelines. So how to create the lesson with respect to think in terms of analysis, synthesis, and logic. Not make sure that things are contextual, make sense. How to research a topic before you apply. I mean, practically speaking, it takes as little as 15 minutes to create a lesson, but to research the topic and understand it could take hours. And then the other step is the quantitative guidelines. Those are, for example, how many activities should you have in the lessons? Typically, we recommend 3 or 4. what type of narration should you have? How many step-by-step procedure do you need in terms of recording animation or real-time execution? All those things are guided, and a lesson should entail these quantitative aspects in order to qualify. Okay, so now the students are creating the lessons, and what we then encourage them to do is to publish. How you publish is depending on the partner. They decide whether this is published and revealed only in the classroom or an institution level, or even made public, perhaps. Teachers are can assess remotely. There's also statistics on assessment of learning that the system does. So the system knows when you logged in, what you created, but also when you digest a lesson, when you go through a lesson, the system assesses you. But very important, we've discovered, is the peer assessment. So teacher, first of all, instruct the students to create 10 lessons each, for example, but also to peer review 10 lessons. Okay. So now when that is done, the evaluation of the lesson starts. We are looking at each component, we are looking at the intellectual quality and the depth of the lesson, but we also provide students the ability to remotely collaborate. So they can explain as a part of the peer review what they were trying to achieve, how successful the lesson was, and also perhaps collaborate around developing lessons together. Last but not least, when everything is said and done, these lessons are stored. So if you have, let's say, 3,000 students, 10 lessons each, we are talking about 30,000 lessons as a part of the course of the program. And then the top lessons, the top 15%, let's say, can then be used as a part of the next year's curriculum. So you're building, as an academic institution or company, this huge library that you can adopt come September in the next after the summer leave. Okay, so how is the AVR platform uniquely suited for this? The fact that you can use it anytime, anywhere, the fact that you are hands-on and you learn contextually, the fact that you can be, many users and work together, the fact that you can peer review together, you can share a virtual room, the ability to do online step-by-step procedures, so you can actually record how I remove the filter on a helicopter, and that recording can then be provided to a student as an exam or a peer for them to do it. It's also very useful. And many other things. The fact that you can create multimedia encompass different type of sources, audio, video, VR, AR, all in one lesson. For you that are interested in this, feel free to contact us. There's a lot of reference materials in this area. Now let me talk briefly about the platform. I already mentioned a few things and why the platform is at the moment very useful. Today, a lot of people have already tried VR and AR. I would say thousands or tens of thousands of academic institutions, for example, and companies. But 82% of them never proceed beyond testing or piloting. They don't implement it. And one of the reasons for that is because there are actually three problems that the reason for they are not progressing. One is lack of good relevant content. The other one is there is no easy way to create new content. And there's a lack of good use cases that prove the value of this. And in fact, EON, our platform and the way we develop things, are focusing specifically in addressing these issues. And we have, to do so, we have an end-to-end solution. On the left-hand side, we have the platform that is easy to use. We actually have an acronym called EASY. So effortless, it's affordable, it's self-service. You can do it yourself. You create the content yourself. It's interconnected, so whatever you create is VR, AR, and mobile, and it accesses now more than 1 million assets. On the right-hand side, we also have a vault. So think about the vault of a vast catalog of pre-developed, qualified lessons that have been accredited by various either companies or academic institutions. Those are advanced, complete application. They address specific needs, and they oftentimes can be quite sophisticated. Okay? And together, we have the platform that has this very broad approach, easy approach. Think about it almost like a YouTube for VR and AR. We have the Vault that has very specific high-end applications. Think about it as a Netflix where you can select for education and for learning. And then as a part of this, we also have a marketplace. So people can develop content and put it on the platform and actually generate revenues. Every time you, and I'll share with you exactly how this works. Let's go to and launch the platform. Okay. So this is the platform. You can see here that I have creation, I have the ability to do virtual trainer, AR assist, and here's the Vault. And the Vault is this vast library of content that is being pre-developed and covers a number of topics that you can see here. So they could be AR or VR or shared VR or even simulation. So you can search for different type of applications. Let's say I'm into vocational training. Let's say I'm interested in a virtual laboratory. And here I can preview a video first before I determine whether I want to have this application. And you can see here that this is about a virtual campus. And it covers a range of pieces of machinery, equipment, etc. that I can interact and immerse myself in. And then I can add or remove. So I've added this to order. And then once I can look at how well, okay, so here's things I've selected in my previous sessions. And then, by the way, this revenue here is then shared with partners that created this. And if you are part of our center network, then of course we can void some of these fees. And you can learn more about that by contacting us. And then you can also create lessons. You can do a 3D lesson here. You can either import data, if you have 3D data, or browse. In this case, let's say someone searched here about coronavirus. That was one of my last search. So let's say I'm interested in power plants. So let's say even nuclear power. And I have free assets and I have assets also I can purchase. So then I can quickly go through this and search this nuclear power plant and I can buy it. Again, if I'm part of the EON Center network, some of these fees can be voided. But I can also get free assets. And once I select a 3D item, I can then go and actually create the lessons. And in interest of time, I'm not going to do the lesson creation. If you're interested, there's special videos you can see online how to do that. So that was a very brief introduction on how that works. Let's go back to where we were. I think we're almost done with the presentation. So in brief, you can create, you can learn, and you can train. You see the user interface there, by the way, for the creation process in that video. You can also bring the content you created in a virtual reality environment. So now I have a headset and I can experience that. I can do annotation, recording, interaction, hosting groups. I can also do 360. And we support most devices from, there's 4 billion handheld devices like phones that we support. There's glasses, AR glasses, or HMDs. And the process, simply defined, is 4 or 5 steps process. So first you browse, as we did just recently. You can import your data from, as I said, more than 120 different formats. You create your lesson, and then you experience it. You can share it, and of course then you track all your how well you did and assess you being assessed. Okay, so that was that. Let's go into the remote packages. So we have prepared packages for different organizations. So you can start as little as 50,000. You can actually start for free, but then if you want to move from that as an institution to have also some hardware like Humido or VR headsets, then you can start with our $50,000 package. We have industry packages around 50 to 99,000, like for pilots. Then of course we have full campus implementation for thousands of students, and likewise full industry hub implementation. So in conclusion, I think we look at this quite positive. I mean, it's a tough time and we all suffered various aspects, but at least the knowledge transfer aspect does not have to come to a standstill. In fact, I believe that 2020 is the year of AR and VR for education training. And I believe also by accessing technology, like EON's, in this case the AVR platform, you can create lessons in minutes, and we can use this technology to bring people together virtually. So you can stay safe at home while continue to learn, train and perform, and enable our students and our colleagues to learn faster, remember longer, and make better decisions. Fundamentally, knowledge is a human right, and we want to make and provide knowledge and make it available, accessible, and affordable for everybody on the planet, especially during these trying times. Thank you so much, and looking forward to engage with you in a short while.